The morning sun cast long shadows across the obstacle course at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado, California. Sarah Martinez adjusted her Kevlar helmet one final time before stepping up to the starting line. Around her, 23 other candidates prepared for what would be their most challenging training exercise yet. The difference was obvious to anyone watching. Sarah was the only woman in the group. She had fought tooth and nail to get here. After 4 years as a Navy intelligence analyst, she had applied for the Special Warfare Combatant Craft Crewman program 3 times before finally being accepted. The physical standards were the same for everyone, regardless of gender. She had met every requirement, exceeded most of them, and still faced skepticism from instructors and fellow candidates alike. Master Chief Petty Officer James Rodriguez stood before the group, his weathered face showing no emotion as he explained the day's mission. The candidates would navigate a complex urban warfare simulation involving hostage rescue, room clearing, and coordinated team movements. They would work in 4-person teams, and performance would be evaluated both individually and as a unit. Teams have already been assigned, Rodriguez announced, reading from his clipboard. Team Alpha, Patterson, Williams, Chun, Martinez. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. She knew these 3 men by reputation. Tom Patterson was a former Marine with a chip on his shoulder about women in combat roles. He had made his feelings clear during previous training exercises through subtle but pointed comments. Jake Williams and Mike Chun usually followed Patterson's lead, creating an unofficial alliance that had made Sarah's training experience increasingly difficult. As the teams dispersed to gather their equipment, Sarah approached her assigned teammates. Patterson barely acknowledged her presence, while Williams and Chun exchanged glances that spoke volumes. She had dealt with this dynamic before, but today felt different. The exercise was more complex, the stakes higher, and the isolation more complete. "Listen up," Patterson said once they were gathered around the equipment table. "This is a real mission simulation. We can't afford any weak links." His eyes lingered on Sarah for just a moment too long. "Everyone needs to pull their weight." Sarah nodded curtly. "Understood. What's the plan?" "Chin takes point. Williams covers the rear. I'll handle room clearing. And you—" Patterson paused, as if considering his options. "You can carry extra ammo." The assignment was clearly intended to minimize her role in the actual combat simulation. Ammunition carrier was typically a support position, not a tactical one. Sarah had trained extensively in close-quarters combat and had consistently scored among the top candidates in marksmanship. The assignment was insulting, but she decided to pick her battles carefully. "Roger that," she replied simply. The urban warfare facility was an impressive maze of interconnected buildings designed to simulate everything from residential neighborhoods to industrial complexes. Today's scenario involved a hostage situation in a multi-story office building. Intelligence indicated that several hostiles had taken civilians captive on the 3rd floor. The team's mission was to infiltrate the building, neutralize the threats, and extract the hostages safely. As they approached the target building, Patterson began issuing orders with military precision. The plan was straightforward but dangerous. They would enter through a ground-floor window, clear each level systematically, and converge on the 3rd floor where the hostages were being held. The exercise began at exactly 0800 hours. Sarah followed her teammates through the breach point, her M4 rifle ready despite her official role as ammunition carrier. The building's interior was dark and filled with smoke machines that created realistic combat conditions. Somewhere in the maze ahead, instructors playing hostile forces waited to test their skills. The 1st floor clearing went smoothly. Chun moved with practiced efficiency, checking corners and doorways while Williams maintained rear security. Patterson coordinated their movement with hand signals, and Sarah found herself adapting to the team's rhythm despite their obvious reluctance to include her in tactical decisions. It was on the 2nd floor that things began to go wrong. As they approached a narrow corridor leading to the stairwell, Chun held up his fist, signaling the team to halt. Through the smoke and dim lighting, they could see movement ahead. Patterson motioned for the team to stack up against the wall while he assessed the situation. Two hostiles, northeast corner, he whispered into his comm unit. Chun, take the one on the left. Williams, you've got the right. Martinez, stay back and watch our six. Sarah positioned herself as ordered, but something felt off about the tactical setup. The corridor was too narrow for the approach Patterson had chosen, and the angles were all wrong. She had studied urban warfare extensively and recognized a potential fatal funnel when she saw one. If the team advanced as planned, they would be walking into a crossfire with no cover and limited escape routes. Patterson, she said quietly, I think we should consider an alternative approach. The sight lines in that corridor create a disadvantageous engagement zone. Patterson turned to her with barely concealed irritation. Did I ask for your opinion, Martinez? Negative, but I'm seeing tactical problems with the current approach that could compromise the mission. You're seeing problems? Williams interjected. You're supposed to be carrying ammo, not playing tactical advisor. Chun snorted quietly. Maybe stick to what you know, Martinez. Sarah felt her jaw clench, but she forced herself to remain professional. I'm just pointing out that the corridor configuration creates a potential trap. If we advance along the main axis, we'll be exposed to crossfire from multiple positions. Look, Patterson said, his voice taking on a condescending tone. I know you think you belong here, but tactical planning is a little more complicated than whatever they taught you in intelligence school. Why don't you leave the thinking to those of us who actually know what we're doing? The comment stung, not just because of its dismissive nature, but because Sarah knew she was right about the tactical situation. She had spent hundreds of hours studying urban warfare scenarios, had excelled in every tactical planning exercise, and had consistently demonstrated sound judgment under pressure. But in this moment, her expertise was being dismissed simply because of who she was rather than what she knew. Understood, she replied through gritted teeth. The team moved forward according to Patterson's plan. Sarah watched from her position as Chun and Williams advanced down the corridor, their movements coordinated but predictable. Patterson followed close behind, his rifle trained on potential threat positions. Everything seemed to be going according to plan until the ambush erupted. The instructors playing hostile forces had positioned themselves exactly where Sarah had anticipated. As Chun rounded the corner, he walked directly into a simulated crossfire that would have been lethal in a real combat situation. Williams, attempting to provide support, found himself caught in the same fatal funnel with no cover available. Contact front, Patterson shouted, but it was too late. The exercise controllers activated the casualty simulation system, marking both Chun and Williams as combat ineffective. In a matter of seconds, the team had lost 2 members due to poor tactical planning. Patterson's face flushed red as he realized what had happened. The mission was effectively over before it had truly begun. 2 team members were dead. The hostiles remained in control of their positions, and the hostages were no closer to rescue. Damn it, he muttered, lowering his weapon. The exercise controllers called a temporary halt to allow the team to reset and continue with reduced numbers. As they regrouped in a secure area, the tension between team members became palpable. Patterson was clearly frustrated by the failure, but instead of acknowledging the tactical error, he seemed to be looking for someone to blame. This is what happens when we don't stick to proven tactics, he said, glaring at Sarah. Too many voices, too much confusion. Sarah stared at him in disbelief. I warned you about the corridor. I told you exactly what would happen. You warned me. Patterson's voice rose. You questioned my tactical judgment based on some textbook theory. Real combat isn't about what you read in a manual, Martinez. It's about experience and instinct. Experience like walking 2 team members into an obvious kill zone. Sarah shot back. Williams, despite being marked as a casualty, couldn't resist joining the argument. Easy for you to criticize when you were sitting safely in the rear. I was sitting in the rear because that's where you put me, Sarah replied. Despite the fact that I've scored higher than any of you in tactical planning exercises. Scores don't mean anything when bullets are flying, Chen added. The argument was interrupted by the arrival of Master Chief Rodriguez, who had been monitoring the exercise from the control room. His expression was grim as he approached the dysfunctional team. "What exactly happened in there?" he asked. Patterson stepped forward to provide his version of events. "We encountered unexpected resistance in the corridor. The hostile forces were positioned differently than we anticipated." "Differently how?" Rodriguez pressed. "They had overlapping fields of fire that created a crossfire situation." Rodriguez nodded slowly, then turned to Sarah. "Martinez, you were designated as the team's ammunition carrier. Do you have anything to add?" Sarah hesitated. She could provide her assessment of the tactical situation, but doing so would directly contradict her team leader's report. In the military hierarchy, challenging a superior's judgment, especially publicly, was a serious matter. On the other hand, the exercise was designed to test not just their combat skills, but their ability to learn from mistakes and adapt their tactics. "Master Chief, I observed the corridor configuration during our initial approach and assessed it as a potential fatal funnel. I attempted to communicate this assessment to the team leader, but was told to focus on my assigned role." Rodriguez's eyebrows rose slightly. "You identified the tactical problem before the engagement?" "Affirmative, Master Chief." "And you communicated this to your team leader?" "Affirmative." Rodriguez turned back to Patterson, his expression unreadable. "Is this accurate, Patterson?" Patterson's jaw worked silently for a moment. Martinez did make some comments about the corridor, but her assessment was based on theoretical knowledge rather than practical experience. "I made the tactical decision based on what I believed was best for the mission." "I see." Rodriguez made a note on his clipboard. "The exercise will resume in 15 minutes. You'll be operating with a 2-person team for the remainder of the mission. I suggest you use that time to reconsider your tactical approach." As Rodriguez walked away, the remaining team members stood in uncomfortable silence. The implication of his words was clear. The tactical failure had been noted, and the circumstances surrounding it would be part of their evaluation. Patterson finally broke the silence. "This is exactly the kind of problem that happens when political correctness gets in the way of military effectiveness," he said, his voice low but audible to everyone present. Sarah felt something snap inside her. After weeks of subtle harassment, professional undermining, and now outright blame for a tactical failure she had tried to prevent, her patience had reached its limit. "Political correctness?" she said, her voice deadly quiet. "Is that what you call tactical competence when it comes from someone you don't think belongs here?" "I call it inexperience, trying to masquerade as expertise," Patterson replied. "You want to be here? Fine. But don't expect us to pretend you're something you're not." "And what exactly am I not?" Sarah demanded. "You're not a warrior," Williams interjected. "You're an analyst playing dress-up." The words hit like a physical blow. Sarah had endured months of questioning her physical capabilities, her mental toughness, her commitment to the mission. But this was different. This was a direct attack on her identity as a military professional, her right to serve in the capacity she had earned through demonstrated competence. "I've met every physical standard," she said, her voice rising. "I've exceeded the academic requirements. I've scored in the top 10% of candidates in every evaluation. What exactly do I need to prove to earn your respect?" "Respect." Chun laughed harshly. "Respect is earned in combat, not in a classroom. You want respect? Stop hiding behind diversity quotas and prove you belong here." "Diversity quotas?" Sarah's voice was now loud enough to attract attention from other teams. "I'm here because I'm qualified, not because of my gender." "Sure you are," Patterson said sarcastically. "Just like every other social experiment the Navy has tried. Lower the standards, change the rules, and pretend it's all about equality." The accusation was both false and deeply personal. Sarah knew her scores, knew her performance metrics, knew exactly how hard she had worked to earn her place in the program. The suggestion that she was somehow a quota higher, that her presence represented lowered standards rather than demonstrated excellence, touched every insecurity she had fought to overcome. "The standards weren't lowered for me," she said, her hands clenching into fists. "I met the same requirements as everyone else." "Did you?" Williams asked mockingly. Or did they just find creative ways to make sure you passed? Around them, other candidates had begun to notice the heated exchange. Sarah could feel eyes watching, could sense the mixture of curiosity and anticipation that comes when conflict erupts in a high-pressure environment. She was acutely aware that how she handled this moment would define her reputation among her peers for the remainder of training. The smart play would be to walk away, to maintain military bearing, and address the situation through proper channels. But months of accumulated frustration, combined with the injustice of being blamed for a tactical failure she had tried to prevent, made rational thought nearly impossible. "You want to know what I am?" she said, stepping closer to Patterson. "I'm someone who actually studied the tactical situation while you were too busy playing team leader to listen to valuable intelligence. I'm someone who scored expert marksman while you barely qualified. You're someone who doesn't belong here." Patterson cut her off. "And deep down, you know it." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Sarah felt the weight of dozens of eyes watching, waiting to see how she would respond. In that moment, she realized that this wasn't just about one failed exercise or one difficult team dynamic. This was about whether she would allow herself to be defined by others' expectations and prejudices, or whether she would stand up for her right to serve alongside her peers as an equal. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, a new voice cut through the tension. "Is there a problem here?" Everyone turned to see a figure approaching from across the training area. He was tall and lean, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to command. His uniform bore the insignia of a Navy SEAL, and there was something in his eyes that suggested he had seen and done things that most people could only imagine. The arrival of the SEAL instantly changed the dynamic of the confrontation. Patterson, Williams, and Chun straightened unconsciously, their aggressive postures replaced by military bearing. Sarah found herself torn between relief at the interruption and embarrassment at being caught in such an unprofessional situation. "No problem, Senior Chief," Patterson replied quickly. "Just discussing tactical approaches." The SEAL's eyes moved from face to face, taking in the obvious tension and Sarah's flushed appearance. "Is that right?" he said quietly. Sounded like more than tactical discussion from where I was standing. His gaze settled on Sarah, and she saw something in his expression that she hadn't seen from her teammates. Professional assessment rather than prejudiced dismissal. He was evaluating her not as a woman trying to do a man's job, but as a military professional in a challenging situation. "What's your name, candidate?" he asked. "Martinez, Senior Chief." "Sarah Martinez." "And you are?" "Special Warfare Candidate, sir. Currently assigned to Team Alpha for urban warfare training." The SEAL nodded slowly, then turned his attention to Patterson. "Team Alpha? You're the team leader." "Yes, Senior Chief." "How's your mission progressing?" Patterson's discomfort was obvious. Admitting tactical failure to a Navy SEAL was not a conversation any candidate wanted to have. "We encountered some unexpected resistance, Senior Chief. Lost 2 team members in the initial engagement." "Unexpected?" The SEAL's tone suggested he found this description inadequate. "Were you briefed on the threat assessment?" "Yes, Senior Chief, but the hostile positioning was different than anticipated." "Different how?" Patterson struggled to find words that would explain the tactical failure without acknowledging his own poor judgment. "The corridor created a crossfire situation that we didn't fully account for." The SEAL's eyes shifted back to Sarah. "Martinez, were you part of the tactical planning for this engagement?" Sarah found herself in an impossible position. Answering honestly would contradict her team leader and potentially escalate the conflict. Remaining silent would allow Patterson's version of events to stand unchallenged. "I was assigned as ammunition carrier, Senior Chief. My role in tactical planning was limited." "Limited how?" "I provided observations about the target area, but tactical decisions were made by the team leader." "What observations?" Sarah hesitated, acutely aware that every word was being heard by her teammates. "I assessed the corridor as a potential fatal funnel due to sightline configuration and recommended an alternative approach." The SEAL's expression didn't change, but Sarah sensed increased attention. "And How was your recommendation received? The team leader decided to proceed with the original plan. I see. The SEAL turned back to Patterson. So you had intelligence about potential tactical problems and decided to disregard it. Patterson's face reddened. Senior Chief, with respect, tactical decisions in the field require consideration of multiple factors. Theoretical assessments don't always translate to practical solutions. Theoretical assessments. The SEAL repeated the words slowly. Is that what you call tactical intelligence provided by a trained analyst? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Patterson seemed to realize that his dismissive attitude towards Sarah's input was being challenged by someone whose opinion carried significant weight. Senior Chief, I made the best decision I could based on my experience and training. Your experience. The SEAL's voice had taken on a different quality, harder and more direct. Tell me about your experience with urban warfare. I served 2 tours in Afghanistan, Senior Chief. Mostly convoy security and forward operating base defense. I see. And you, Martinez, what's your background? 4 years as an intelligence analyst, Senior Chief. Specialized in tactical assessment and threat evaluation. I've completed advanced courses in urban warfare analysis and close quarters combat theory. The contrast was obvious to everyone listening. Patterson's experience was primarily defensive, while Sarah had specifically trained in the type of tactical analysis that could have prevented the mission failure. The SEAL seemed to be drawing the same conclusion. So let me understand this correctly, he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. You had a team member with specialized training in exactly the type of tactical assessment needed for this mission, and you assigned her to carry ammunition? Patterson's jaw worked silently. The question exposed the absurdity of the team assignments and the wasted opportunity they represented. Senior Chief, team assignments are based on multiple factors, including physical capabilities and mission requirements. Physical capabilities. The SEAL's attention turned back to Sarah. Martinez, what are your physical training scores? Currently ranked 3rd in the class, Senior Chief. Expert marksman, superior physical fitness rating, top 10% in all technical skills assessments. The SEAL nodded slowly. 3rd in the class. And you're carrying ammunition because of physical limitations? The question was clearly rhetorical, but it highlighted the disconnect between Sarah's demonstrated abilities and her assignment within the team. Patterson seemed to realize that his justifications were falling apart under professional scrutiny. Senior Chief, team chemistry is also an important factor in mission success. Team chemistry. The SEAL's tone suggested he found this explanation particularly interesting. Are you saying that personal feelings are more important than tactical effectiveness? No, Senior Chief, but cohesion and trust are essential in combat situations. Trust. The SEAL stepped closer to Patterson. So you trust your team members to carry out their assigned roles? Yes, Senior Chief. All of your team members? Patterson hesitated. The question was a trap, and he seemed to realize it. If he said yes, he would be contradicting his obvious lack of confidence in Sarah. If he said no, he would be admitting to a fundamental breakdown in team cohesion. Senior Chief, I trust all team members to perform their assigned duties to the best of their abilities. But you don't trust Martinez to perform tactical duties commensurate with her training and demonstrated abilities? The question cut straight to the heart of the issue. Patterson had assigned Sarah to a support role not because of any lack of capability on her part, but because of his own prejudices and assumptions. The SEAL's methodical questioning had exposed this reality in a way that was impossible to deny. Senior Chief, I assigned roles based on what I believed would be most effective for the mission. And how did that work out? The question was delivered with the precision of a surgical strike. Patterson's tactical decisions had resulted in complete mission failure, while the intelligence provided by the team member he had marginalized proved to be completely accurate. Not as well as hoped, Senior Chief. Not as well as hoped. The SEAL repeated the words with obvious skepticism. 2 team members killed, mission failed, hostages still in hostile hands. That's one hell of an understatement. Around them, Other candidates watched in fascination as Patterson was systematically dismantled by a professional whose experience and expertise were beyond question. The contrast between the SEAL's calm, methodical approach and the angry confrontation that had preceded his arrival was stark. Senior Chief Williams interjected, apparently feeling the need to defend his team leader. Tactical situations are complex. It's easy to second-guess decisions after the fact. The SEAL's attention shifted to Williams with the speed of a predator focusing on new prey. Second guess? Is that what you call analyzing tactical failures to prevent future casualties? No, Senior Chief, but what? Williams seemed to realize he had made a mistake by drawing attention to himself. Nothing, Senior Chief. Nothing. The SEAL's voice carried a note of dangerous quiet. So you have nothing to add to your team leader's tactical assessment? No, Senior Chief. The SEAL turned to Chun. And you? No, Senior Chief. Interesting. The SEAL looked back at Sarah. Martinez, if you were leading this team, how would you have approached the tactical situation? The question put Sarah in an even more difficult position. Providing a detailed tactical assessment would be seen as directly challenging her team leader's competence. But the SEAL's question seemed to be less about tactics and more about her professional capabilities. Senior Chief, I would have recommended a multi-axis approach using the building service corridors to avoid the main choke points. The intelligence briefing indicated that the hostiles were positioned to cover the primary approaches, so alternative routes would have provided better tactical advantage. Alternative routes. The SEAL nodded. And how would you have coordinated team movement? Two-person teams moving along parallel routes with coordinated timing for the final assault. This would have divided hostile attention and provided multiple angles of attack while minimizing exposure to crossfire. The tactical assessment was delivered with professional precision and demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of urban warfare principles. The contrast between Sarah's detailed analysis and Patterson's failed plan was obvious to everyone present. Sounds like a solid approach, the SEAL said. Why wasn't it implemented? Sarah found herself trapped between honesty and military courtesy. Answering the question truthfully would require her to directly criticize her team leader's decision-making process. Senior Chief, I was not in a command position. Tactical decisions were the team leader's responsibility. But you had input. Limited input, Senior Chief. How limited? Sarah glanced at Patterson, who was watching the exchange with obvious discomfort. My tactical assessment was considered but ultimately not incorporated into the mission plan. Your tactical assessment. The SEAL's voice had taken on a new edge. The assessment that correctly identified the tactical problems that led to mission failure? Yes, Senior Chief. The SEAL turned back to Patterson, his expression unreadable. So you had accurate tactical intelligence and chose to ignore it. Senior Chief, with respect, combat decisions require more than theoretical analysis. Experience and intuition are essential factors. Experience and intuition. The SEAL's tone suggested he found this explanation inadequate. Tell me about your intuition regarding Martinez's capabilities. The question was direct and dangerous. Patterson seemed to understand that any answer would reveal his prejudices while providing no justification for his tactical decisions. Senior Chief, I assessed all team members based on their demonstrated abilities and assigned roles accordingly. Their demonstrated abilities. The SEAL pulled out a small notebook and consulted it briefly. Let's see. Martinez, third in class ranking, expert marksman, superior fitness rating, top 10% in technical assessments. Patterson, 15th in class ranking, qualified marksman, adequate fitness rating, middle tier in technical assessments. The numbers were devastating. Sarah outperformed Patterson in virtually every measurable category, yet she had been assigned to the most junior role on the team. The disparity was so obvious that any attempt to justify it based on merit would be laughable. Patterson's face had gone pale. Being publicly compared to Sarah in terms of measurable performance metrics exposed the reality that his leadership position was based on assumptions and prejudices rather than demonstrated competence. Senior Chief, he began, but the SEAL held up a hand. I'm not finished. The SEAL's attention returned to Sarah. Martinez, in your assessment, what was the primary factor that led to mission failure? Senior Chief, inadequate tactical planning based on incomplete threat assessment and failure to utilize available intelligence resources. Available intelligence resources. Yes, Senior Chief. Meaning you. Yes, Senior Chief. The SEAL closed his notebook and looked around the group. So what we have here is a team leader who ignored tactical intelligence provided by his most qualified team member, assigned that team member to a role that wasted her capabilities, and then blamed external factors when his plan failed catastrophically. The summary was brutal in its accuracy. Patterson stood silent, apparently realizing that any further attempt at justification would only make the situation worse. But that's not the most interesting part, the SEAL continued. The most interesting part is what I observed when I approached this group. I saw 3 candidates ganging up on one, using personal attacks and professional undermining rather than legitimate tactical criticism. His words carried the weight of authority and experience. The casual cruelty that had characterized the earlier confrontation was being exposed and condemned by someone whose opinion mattered in the military hierarchy. Senior Chief, Chin began, but the SEAL cut him off with a look. I'm still not finished. His attention focused on Patterson. Leadership isn't about maintaining authority through intimidation or protecting your position by undermining subordinates. Leadership is about utilizing every resource available to accomplish the mission and ensure your team's survival. Patterson nodded stiffly. Understood, Senior Chief. Do you? Because what I witnessed suggests that you're more concerned with maintaining some kind of social hierarchy than with tactical effectiveness. The accusation was direct and damning. Patterson had prioritized his personal comfort and prejudices over mission success and team effectiveness. Senior Chief, that was not my intention. Intentions don't matter. Results matter. And your results speak for themselves. The SEAL turned back to Sarah. Martinez, how do you assess your team's current operational effectiveness? Sarah considered her response carefully. The honest answer was that the team was dysfunctional and unlikely to succeed in any complex mission. But saying so directly would be seen as unprofessional and disloyal. Senior Chief, I believe there are opportunities for improvement in communication and tactical coordination. Opportunities for improvement. The SEAL's slight smile suggested he appreciated the diplomatic phrasing. That's one way to put it. He looked around the group one final time. Let me be very clear about something. Special warfare demands the highest levels of professional competence and personal integrity. There is no room for prejudice, no tolerance for undermining team members, and absolutely no acceptance of allowing personal feelings to compromise mission effectiveness. His words carried the authority of someone who had seen real combat and understood the life and death consequences of team dysfunction. Martinez, you've demonstrated tactical competence and professional bearing under difficult circumstances. That's exactly what we need in special warfare operators. Sarah felt a surge of validation that was almost overwhelming. After months of having her capabilities questioned and her presence resented, hearing professional recognition from an experienced SEAL meant more than any formal evaluation could. Patterson, you've demonstrated poor tactical judgment and worse leadership. If you want to succeed in this program, you need to learn to utilize your team's capabilities rather than waste them. The criticism was delivered with professional precision, but its implications were clear. Patterson's future in the program was now in serious question. All of you need to understand something, the SEAL continued. Special warfare teams succeed because every member contributes their unique capabilities to the mission. If you can't work effectively with qualified teammates regardless of their background, you don't belong in special warfare. The message was unmistakable. The kind of harassment and professional undermining that Sarah had endured would not be tolerated at higher levels of military special operations. Senior Chief, Patterson said quietly, Understood. Good. Because this conversation is going into my report, and that report will be shared with your instructors and evaluation committee. The implications were serious. Poor leadership evaluations could result in removal from the program, effectively ending military special operations careers before they had begun. Martinez, the SEAL, said, turning to her one final time, "You have 15 minutes to prepare for the continuation of your exercise. I suggest you use that time to provide tactical input for your team's revised approach." Sarah nodded. "Yes, Senior Chief. And I suggest the rest of you listen to what she has to say. Your mission success may depend on it." With that, the SEAL turned and walked away, leaving the 4 team members standing in uncomfortable silence. The dynamic had fundamentally changed. Sarah was no longer the outsider being bullied by her teammates. She was now the team member whose tactical expertise had been publicly validated by a Navy SEAL. The exercise would continue, but everything was different now. Patterson cleared his throat uncomfortably. "So, Martinez," he said, his voice lacking its earlier confidence, "you mentioned alternative approaches to the corridor problem?" Sarah looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "I think we need to completely reassess our tactical approach. The original plan was fundamentally flawed. For the first time since joining the team, she had their complete attention. The mission was about to begin again, and this time, her voice would be heard." Sarah spread the building schematic across the equipment table, her finger tracing potential routes through the complex structure. The atmosphere around the team had shifted dramatically since the SEAL's intervention. Patterson, Williams, and Chen now watched her with grudging attention rather than dismissive hostility. "The main issue with our previous approach," Sarah began, her voice steady and professional, "was that we tried to move through the primary corridors where the hostiles expected us. Look at the service passages here." She pointed to narrow lines on the blueprint that represented maintenance corridors and utility routes. Patterson leaned in closer, his earlier arrogance replaced by reluctant curiosity. "Those passages are pretty narrow. If we get caught in there, we're trapped." "That's true," Sarah acknowledged. "But the intelligence briefing indicated that hostile forces are concentrated in the main areas. They're not expecting an approach through the service corridors because most teams don't consider them viable." Williams studied the schematic with new interest. "How do we know the service passages connect to the target area?" Sarah had already considered this question. Building codes require service access to all floors for maintenance and emergency response. These corridors should provide routes to within 20 feet of the hostage location. Chun, who had been silent since the SEAL's departure, finally spoke. "What about extraction? Even if we can get to the hostages through the service routes, we still need to get them out safely." It was the first time any of her teammates had asked for her tactical input rather than simply dismissing it. Sarah felt a mixture of satisfaction and caution. The team dynamics were changing, but she couldn't be sure whether it was genuine respect for her abilities or simply fear of the consequences they had just witnessed. "The extraction is where we use the service corridors to our advantage," she explained. "While the primary corridors are monitored and defended, the service routes should allow us to move hostages to a secure area before the hostiles can respond effectively." Patterson frowned as he studied the blueprint. "This is pretty complex coordination. We're down 2 team members, so it's just the 2 of us for the actual mission." Sarah nodded, which actually works better for this approach. 2-person movement through narrow spaces is more manageable than 4-person teams. We can move faster and maintain better noise discipline. The concept was sound, but it required a level of trust and coordination that the team had not previously demonstrated. Patterson would need to rely on Sarah's tactical judgment, while she would need to trust him to follow her lead in areas where she had superior knowledge and training. "All right," Patterson said after a long pause. "Let's try it your way." The words were grudging, but they represented a fundamental shift in team dynamics. For the first time, Sarah's tactical expertise was being acknowledged and utilized rather than dismissed and wasted. They gathered their equipment with new purpose. Sarah checked her M4 rifle and ammunition load, while Patterson verified their communications gear and medical supplies. The mission clock was ticking, and every minute of delay reduced their chances of successful hostage rescue. As they approached the target building for the second time, Sarah felt a mix of nervous energy and professional excitement. This was her chance to prove that her tactical theories could translate into successful mission execution. More importantly, it was an opportunity to demonstrate that her presence on the team was an asset rather than a liability. The service entrance Sarah had identified was located on the building's north side, away from the main approaches that the hostiles would be watching. It was a simple metal door marked with utility company warnings and access restrictions. In a real-world scenario, such entrances were often overlooked by both attackers and defenders. Patterson approached the door while Sarah provided overwatch, her rifle trained on potential threat positions. The lock was a standard commercial grade that could be bypassed with basic tools. Within minutes, they had gained entry to the building's utility infrastructure. The service corridor was exactly as Sarah had predicted: narrow, dimly lit, and filled with pipes, electrical conduits, and ventilation equipment. It was not designed for human movement, but it was passable for properly motivated individuals with specific mission objectives. "This way," Sarah whispered, consulting her memorized layout of the building's internal structure. The corridor led toward the central core of the building, where the main elevator shafts and stairwells were located. They moved in single file, with Sarah taking point despite her earlier assignment as ammunition carrier. Patterson followed close behind, his earlier skepticism giving way to professional respect for her navigation skills and tactical awareness. The service corridor was eerily quiet compared to the chaos they had experienced in the main building areas during their previous attempt. Here, the sounds of the ongoing exercise were muffled and distant. They could hear occasional radio chatter from the instructors playing hostile forces, but the voices seemed far away and posed no immediate threat. "Contact ahead," Sarah whispered, holding up her fist in the universal signal to halt. Through a maintenance grate, they could see into one of the main corridors where two instructors in hostile force gear were positioned. The instructors were clearly waiting for candidates to approach through the primary routes, just as Sarah had predicted. Their attention was focused away from the service areas, confirming her assessment of their tactical positioning. Patterson moved up beside her, careful not to make noise in the confined space. "Can we bypass them?" Sarah studied the situation carefully. "There's a vertical chase about 10 feet ahead that should take us up to the second floor. From there, we can continue toward the target area without being detected." The vertical chase was essentially a shaft that contained pipes and electrical systems running between floors. It would be a tight fit, but it offered the most direct route to their objective while maintaining concealment from hostile forces. They reached the access point to the vertical chase, and Sarah began the careful process of climbing upward through the maze of pipes and conduits. The physical demands were significant, requiring upper body strength and coordination to navigate the obstacle course of building infrastructure. Behind her, Patterson struggled slightly with the climb. Sarah had to suppress a moment of satisfaction at outperforming him in yet another area. Her regular fitness training and rock climbing experience were paying dividends in this unexpected environment. "You okay back there?" she whispered. "Fine," Patterson replied, though his breathing suggested otherwise. They reached the second floor access point, and Sarah carefully checked the area before emerging from the service corridor. The second floor was clear of hostile forces, but they could hear movement and radio chatter from the floor above where the hostages were being held. "Third floor is where it gets interesting," Sarah whispered as they regrouped in a maintenance room. "Intelligence indicates 3 hostile forces with an unknown number of hostages. We need to approach carefully to avoid casualties." Patterson checked his weapon and equipment. "What's your recommendation for the final approach?" The question represented complete role reversal from their earlier interaction. Now Patterson was actively seeking her tactical input rather than dismissing it. Sarah felt a mix of vindication and responsibility. This was her plan, and its success or failure would rest largely on her tactical decisions. "We continue through the service corridors until we're directly adjacent to the target room. Then we breach simultaneously from two different access points to divide their attention and create confusion. Simultaneous breach with only two people. Sarah had already considered this challenge. The service corridors provide access to multiple points around the target room. If we position ourselves correctly, we can create the illusion of a larger force while maintaining the element of surprise. It was a complex plan that required precise timing and coordination, but it offered their best chance of success given their limited personnel and the tactical constraints they faced. They resumed their movement through the service corridors, climbing steadily toward the third floor. The building's infrastructure was more complex at the upper levels, with additional ventilation systems and mechanical equipment that provided both concealment and navigation challenges. As they approached the target area, Sarah could hear voices from the hostage scenario. The instructors playing civilian captives were maintaining their roles, while the hostile forces issued periodic demands and threats. The simulation was realistic enough to create genuine tension and urgency. "There," Sarah whispered, pointing to two different access points that would allow them to approach the target room from different angles. "You take the position near the main ventilation return. I'll approach from the electrical access panel." Patterson studied the setup with new appreciation for her tactical planning. "How do we coordinate timing?" Sarah checked her watch and communications equipment. 60-second countdown, starting on my mark. We breach simultaneously and converge on the hostile positions. Rules of engagement, standard training protocols. Neutralize hostile forces, secure hostages, establish perimeter. The plan was straightforward in concept, but demanding in execution. Both team members would need to perform flawlessly while operating independently in a high-stress environment. "Ready?" Sarah asked. Patterson nodded, his earlier antagonism completely replaced by professional focus. "Mark." 60 seconds, starting now. They separated and moved to their assigned positions, each navigating through the complex maze of building infrastructure. Sarah reached her access point with 30 seconds to spare, giving her time to check her equipment and prepare for the breach. Through the wall, she could hear the ongoing scenario. 3 distinct voices that she identified as hostile forces, plus several hostages who were playing their roles with convincing fear and desperation. The tactical situation was exactly as briefed, which validated the intelligence assessment they had received. 15 seconds remained. Sarah positioned herself at the access panel, her rifle ready, and her mind focused on the sequence of actions she would need to execute. Breach, identify threats, neutralize hostile forces, secure hostages, communicate with teammate. 10 seconds. Sarah controlled her breathing and focused on her sight picture. The success of the mission depended on split-second decision-making and precise execution. 5 seconds. Sarah gripped her rifle and prepared to move. Time. She breached through the access panel into the target room, her rifle immediately identifying and engaging the nearest hostile force. At the same moment, she heard Patterson breaching from his position across the room, creating the coordinated distraction they had planned. The hostile forces were caught completely off guard. They had been positioned to defend against approaches through the main corridors and had no contingency for simultaneous breaches from multiple service access points. "Federal agents," Sarah shouted, maintaining the scenario as she engaged the second hostile force. "Drop your weapons." The simulation played out with military precision. Within seconds, all 3 hostile forces had been neutralized without casualties to the hostages. The rescue was complete, and the mission was successful. "Clear," Patterson called out from his position. "Clear," Sarah responded, establishing a security perimeter around the rescued hostages. The exercise controllers called an end to the simulation, and the instructors playing hostile forces and hostages dropped their roles. Master Chief Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, his expression neutral as he surveyed the scene. "Mission accomplished," he announced. "All hostiles neutralized, all hostages secured, 0 friendly casualties." Sarah felt a surge of professional satisfaction that was almost overwhelming. After the failure of their first attempt and the confrontation with their teammates, the successful completion of the mission felt like vindication of everything she had worked to achieve. Rodriguez approached the team with his evaluation clipboard. "Impressive tactical execution," he said. "I'm particularly interested in the approach methodology. This was significantly different from your first attempt." Patterson stepped forward. "We revised our tactical approach based on intelligence analysis and alternative route assessment." Intelligence analysis provided by whom? Patterson glanced at Sarah, and for a moment she thought he might try to claim credit for the tactical planning. But something had changed in their dynamic during the mission execution. Intelligence analysis provided by Martinez, Master Chief. The tactical plan was her design. Rodriguez nodded slowly, making notes on his evaluation form. "Martinez, walk me through your tactical assessment." Sarah provided a detailed explanation of her analysis of the building layout, the hostile positioning, the advantages of service corridor approaches, and the coordination required for simultaneous breach operations. Rodriguez listened with obvious interest, occasionally asking technical questions that demonstrated his own extensive tactical experience. "And, Patterson, how do you assess Martinez's tactical leadership during this exercise?" Patterson's response would be critical for Sarah's evaluation and her future in the program. She held her breath, waiting to hear whether his newfound respect would translate into an honest professional assessment. "Master Chief, Martinez demonstrated superior tactical analysis, excellent operational planning, and outstanding execution under pressure. Her leadership during this mission was exemplary." The words were unequivocal and genuine. Patterson was giving her full credit for the mission's success, acknowledging her tactical expertise, and recommending her for leadership roles. Rodriguez made additional notes, then looked up at both team members. "This represents a significant improvement in team performance. What changed between your first attempt and this successful mission?" Sarah waited for Patterson to respond, uncertain how he would address the earlier confrontation and the intervention by the Navy SEAL. "Master Chief, we had some communication issues during our initial approach that prevented us from utilizing all available expertise. After some feedback and reassessment, we were able to improve our tactical coordination and achieve mission success." It was a diplomatic way of acknowledging the problems without providing embarrassing details. Rodriguez seemed satisfied with the explanation, though Sarah suspected he had a good idea of what had actually transpired. "Communication issues," Rodriguez repeated. "Those can be fatal in real-world operations." "Understood, Master Chief." "Good, because effective teamwork and mutual respect are essential for special warfare operations. Individual capabilities don't matter if team members can't work together professionally." The message was clear. Rodriguez was aware of the earlier tensions and was emphasizing the importance of overcoming them. "Martinez," Rodriguez said, turning to her, "how do you assess your team's current operational effectiveness?" Sarah chose her words carefully. "I believe we've made significant progress in tactical coordination and communication, Master Chief. The mission's success demonstrates that our team can function effectively when all capabilities are properly utilized." "All capabilities properly utilized," Rodriguez repeated with a slight smile. "That's exactly what special warfare is about." He finished his notes and closed his clipboard. "This mission will be written up as a tactical success with commendations for innovative approaches and effective leadership. Both team members demonstrated the kind of adaptability and professional excellence we expect from special warfare candidates." Sarah felt a wave of relief and pride. After months of struggle and the morning's confrontation, she was finally receiving the professional recognition she had earned. "There's one more thing," Rodriguez added. "I've had a conversation with Senior Chief Peterson about this team's performance and potential. He's recommended that both of you participate in an advanced tactical leadership exercise next week." The implication was significant. Recommendation for advanced exercises was often a pathway to leadership positions and specialized training opportunities. For Sarah, It represented validation that her tactical skills were not just adequate, but exceptional. Thank you, Master Chief. Both candidates replied simultaneously. As Rodriguez left to evaluate other teams, Sarah and Patterson found themselves alone for the first time since their successful mission. The atmosphere between them had fundamentally changed. The earlier hostility and professional undermining had been replaced by mutual respect based on demonstrated performance. Sarah, Patterson said, using her first name for the first time, "I owe you an apology." Sarah looked at him carefully, trying to assess whether his change in attitude was genuine or simply a response to being caught in inappropriate behavior by a superior officer. "I was wrong about your capabilities," he continued. "I let personal prejudices interfere with professional judgment, and that's inexcusable." The admission was direct and unambiguous. Patterson was acknowledging his mistakes and taking responsibility for the team's earlier dysfunction. "I appreciate that," Sarah replied. "What matters now is that we were able to work together effectively when it counted." "No," Patterson said firmly, "what matters is that I learned something important about leadership and teamwork. Your tactical expertise saved this mission and probably would have saved Chun and Williams if I had listened to you earlier." The acknowledgement was more than Sarah had expected. Patterson was not just apologizing for the confrontation, but recognizing that his prejudices had compromised mission effectiveness and potentially endangered team members. "We all have things to learn," Sarah said diplomatically. "Some of us have more learning to do than others," Patterson replied with rueful honesty. They walked back toward the staging area where other teams were completing their exercises. Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond the successful mission completion. She had proven her tactical capabilities under pressure, earned the respect of her teammates, and received recognition from senior instructors. But more importantly, she had demonstrated that professional excellence could overcome prejudice and that her presence in the special warfare community was based on merit rather than political considerations. As they approached the debriefing area, Sarah noticed Williams and Chun waiting near the equipment tables. Their expressions were subdued, and they watched her approach with obvious uncertainty. The dynamic between all team members had changed, and they seemed unsure how to navigate the new reality. "Martinez," Williams said as she approached, "we heard about the mission success. Congratulations." "Thank you," Sarah replied neutrally. Chun stepped forward, his earlier hostility replaced by something approaching respect. "We also heard that you designed the tactical approach that made it work." Sarah nodded. "It was a team effort." "No," Chun said, shaking his head. "It was your tactical analysis that solved the problem the rest of US couldn't figure out." The admission was significant. Chun was acknowledging not just the success of her plan, but the failure of their collective efforts when her input had been dismissed. Williams looked uncomfortable, but determined to speak. "We wanted to apologize for earlier. The way we acted was unprofessional and wrong." Sarah studied both men, trying to assess the sincerity of their change in attitude. She had been subjected to months of subtle harassment and professional undermining, culminating in the morning's direct confrontation. Words of apology were easy to speak when careers were at stake. "Apologies are appreciated," she said carefully, "but what matters moving forward is professional behavior and effective teamwork." "Understood," Williams replied. "We want you to know that we respect your capabilities and want to work together effectively." Chun nodded in agreement. "We've learned something important today about judging people based on their performance rather than our assumptions." The conversation was interrupted by the approach of Master Chief Rodriguez, who had completed his evaluations of other teams and was ready to begin the formal debriefing process. "Team Alpha," he called out, "gather round for assessment review." As they assembled around Rodriguez, Sarah realized that this moment represented more than just the conclusion of a training exercise. It was the beginning of a new phase in her military career where her capabilities would be recognized and utilized rather than questioned and wasted. Today's exercise demonstrated both the challenges and opportunities inherent in special warfare operations, Rodriguez began. Some teams struggled with tactical adaptation, while others showed exceptional flexibility and innovation. His eyes moved across the assembled candidates. Team Alpha's second mission attempt represents exactly the kind of tactical thinking and execution we need in special warfare operators. The ability to analyze failure, adapt approach, and achieve mission success despite initial setbacks is a critical skill. Sarah felt a surge of pride at being publicly recognized for tactical excellence. After months of having her contributions minimized or ignored, professional acknowledgement from a senior instructor was deeply satisfying. The tactical approach used in the successful mission will be included in our case study materials for future classes, Rodriguez continued. It demonstrates how innovative thinking and effective utilization of team capabilities can overcome conventional tactical challenges. Patterson glanced at Sarah with an expression that mixed pride and embarrassment. He was clearly pleased with the team's success, but uncomfortable with the reminder of his initial resistance to her tactical input. Individual performance evaluations will be provided tomorrow, Rodriguez concluded, but I can tell you that today's exercise has identified several candidates for advanced training opportunities and leadership development programs. As the debriefing concluded and candidates began to disperse, Sarah found herself approached by several classmates who had heard about Team Alpha's successful mission and were curious about the tactical innovations that had made it possible. Sarah called out Jessica Chun from Team Bravo. I heard you designed some kind of alternative approach that worked when the conventional methods failed. Sarah provided a brief overview of the service corridor strategy and the coordination required for its execution. As she spoke, she noticed that her classmates were listening with genuine interest and professional respect rather than the skepticism she had grown accustomed to receiving. That's brilliant, said Marcus Johnson from Team Charlie. We lost half our team trying to fight through those main corridors. I never thought about using building infrastructure as tactical routes. The recognition from peers was as meaningful as the official acknowledgement from instructors. Sarah was finally being seen as a tactical resource rather than a diversity initiative, as a professional colleague rather than an unwelcome intruder. As the crowd of curious candidates dispersed, Sarah was approached by a familiar figure. Senior Chief Peterson, the Navy SEAL who had intervened in the morning's confrontation, walked toward her with the confident stride of someone accustomed to command authority. Martinez, he said as he approached, I heard about your mission's success. Outstanding work. Thank you, Senior Chief. I'm particularly interested in the tactical innovation you demonstrated. Using building service infrastructure as approach routes shows exactly the kind of creative problem-solving we need in special operations. Sarah felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. Receiving praise from an experienced SEAL was professionally significant, but she was uncertain about the implications for her future training and career prospects. Master Chief Rodriguez mentioned that you'll be participating in advanced tactical exercises, Peterson continued. I wanted to let you know that I'll be observing those exercises personally. The statement carried multiple implications. Senior Chief Peterson would be evaluating her performance at the highest levels of training, which could open doors to elite opportunities or confirm that she belonged among the most capable special warfare candidates. Understand, Senior Chief. Do you? Peterson's expression grew more serious. Because what I'm talking about isn't just advanced training. I'm talking about the kind of tactical leadership roles that can define an entire career. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. The conversation was moving beyond routine encouragement into discussions of career-defining opportunities. Senior Chief, I'm committed to excellence in whatever role I'm assigned. I'm not talking about whatever role you're assigned, Peterson replied. I'm talking about the roles you earn through demonstrated capability. He paused, studying her carefully. Today you proved that you can perform under pressure, adapt to changing circumstances, and lead effectively when given the opportunity. Those are exactly the qualities we need in special operations leadership. The implications were staggering. Sarah had entered the special warfare program, hoping simply to prove that she belonged. Now she was being told that her performance suggested leadership potential at the highest levels of military special operations. What you did this morning took courage, Peterson continued, both tactically and personally, standing up for your professional assessment despite team resistance, maintaining military bearing under hostile circumstances, and then proving your tactical competence when given the opportunity. That's the kind of character we build special operations around. Sarah struggled to find appropriate words. After months of fighting for basic acceptance, hearing that her actions were being evaluated as leadership qualities rather than disruptive behavior was almost overwhelming. Thank you, Senior Chief. I won't disappoint you. Peterson smiled slightly. You already haven't disappointed me. The question now is how far you're willing to push your capabilities. As he walked away, Sarah stood alone in the training area, processing the day's dramatic transformation in her professional prospects. 12 hours earlier, she had been a marginalized team member carrying ammunition for teammates who questioned her right to be present. Now she was being considered for advanced tactical leadership training by one of the military's most elite units. The sun was beginning to set over the Coronado training facility, casting long shadows across the obstacle courses and tactical training areas. In the distance, other candidates were completing their own exercises, pursuing their own dreams of special warfare careers. Sarah picked up her gear and began walking toward the barracks, her mind racing with the implications of everything that had happened. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove herself, and new tests of the tactical and leadership capabilities that had finally been recognized. But tonight, for the first time since beginning the program, she felt confident that she truly belonged among the elite warriors she hoped to become. The transformation was complete. From an outsider fighting for acceptance to a recognized tactical leader with unlimited potential. The intervention of the Navy SEAL had changed everything, but it was her own competence and courage that had earned the respect and opportunities now opening before her. As she reached the barracks, Sarah realized that her real journey was just beginning. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood at the edge of a different kind of proving ground. The Advanced Tactical Leadership course took place in a remote facility in the mountains of Southern California, far from the familiar beaches of Coronado. Here, the training was more intense, the scenarios more complex, and the expectations exponentially higher. Only 12 candidates had been selected for this elite program, drawn from the top performers across multiple special warfare training classes. Sarah was not only the youngest candidate, but also the only woman. Unlike her earlier experiences, however, the selection was based purely on demonstrated tactical excellence rather than program quotas or social experiments. Senior Chief Peterson had been true to his word. Over the past 3 weeks, he had personally overseen her preparation for the advanced course, providing additional training in tactical planning, leadership under extreme stress, and the kind of decision-making required when lives hung in the balance. Martinez called Instructor Williams, a former Delta Force operator who served as the course director, your team leader for today's scenario. Sarah felt a familiar mixture of excitement and nervous energy. Leading a team of elite candidates would test every skill she had developed and every lesson she had learned about command authority and tactical effectiveness. The scenario briefing was complex and deliberately ambiguous. Intelligence indicated that a high-value target had been captured by hostile forces and was being held in a remote compound. The mission was rescue and extraction, but the intelligence was incomplete, the hostile force strength was unknown, and time was running out. Team composition, Williams continued. Martinez as team leader, Rodriguez as second in command, Chun as communication specialist, and Patterson as heavy weapons support. Sarah noticed with interest that Tom Patterson was among her assigned team members. Their relationship had evolved significantly since the confrontation 3 weeks earlier. Patterson had not only acknowledged his mistakes, but had actively worked to change his attitudes and behaviors. He had become one of her strongest supporters in subsequent training exercises. Rules of engagement are flexible, Williams explained. This is a fluid situation requiring adaptive leadership and tactical innovation. Mission success will be evaluated based on objective completion, team effectiveness, and leadership decision-making under pressure. As the team gathered their equipment, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility that came with command authority. These were not struggling candidates who needed guidance and encouragement. These were elite operators who expected competent leadership and tactical excellence. "All right, team," she began as they assembled around a tactical map. "Let's analyze what we know and what we don't know." Rodriguez, a former Army Ranger with extensive combat experience, leaned over the map with professional interest. "Intelligence is pretty thin. We've got a suspected location, possible hostile strength estimates, and a 12-hour window before the situation becomes critical." Chun, who had evolved from antagonist to valuable team member during their previous training, studied the terrain features surrounding the target compound. Approach routes are limited. The compound is positioned to control all major access points. Patterson examined the weapons and equipment manifest with the attention to detail that had made him valuable despite his earlier attitude problems. "We've got enough firepower for a direct assault, but that assumes we can get close enough without being detected." Sarah listened to each assessment, recognizing that her team members were not just following orders, but providing genuine tactical input based on their individual expertise. This was how elite military units functioned: collaborative analysis leading to informed decision-making. "Here's what I see," Sarah said, pointing to specific locations on the map. The compound location gives them tactical advantages, but it also creates predictable patterns. They're positioned to defend against conventional approaches, which means they may be vulnerable to unconventional methods. Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. "Similar to your service corridor approach 3 weeks ago, but on a larger scale." "Exactly. If we can identify approach routes that bypass their prepared defensive positions, we can gain tactical advantage through surprise rather than superior firepower." Sarah traced possible routes on the topographical map, her mind analyzing terrain features and tactical possibilities. The skills she had developed in intelligence analysis were proving invaluable in operational planning. "Chun, what are our communications capabilities?" "Full-spectrum electronic support, including signals intelligence, gathering, and communications disruption. If they're using standard radio procedures, we can monitor their communications and potentially interfere with their coordination." "Patterson, what are our options for fire support?" "Precision weapons for targeted engagement, plus area denial capabilities if we need to control hostile movement. The key is having accurate target identification before we engage." Sarah studied the tactical situation with growing confidence. Her team members were providing expert input based on their specialized knowledge, creating a comprehensive picture of capabilities and opportunities. "Here's my assessment," she said finally. "Direct assault plays to their strengths and our weaknesses. But if we can combine electronic intelligence gathering with an unconventional approach route, we can achieve surprise and maintain tactical advantage throughout the engagement." Rodriguez smiled slightly. "Sounds like you have a plan. Ido. But I want everyone's input before we finalize it." Sarah outlined her tactical concept, using Chen's communications capabilities to gather intelligence on hostile positions and strength, identifying an approach route that bypassed their defensive preparations, and coordinating a precision assault that would neutralize threats while minimizing risk to the hostage. "The key," she explained, "is patience and information gathering. Most teams will try to solve this with speed and aggressive action. We're going to solve it with better intelligence and superior tactical positioning." Patterson studied the plan with obvious approval. "It's exactly the opposite of what they'll be expecting, which is why it should work," Chen added. Rodriguez nodded agreement. "It's a solid plan. Complex coordination, but that plays to our strengths." With the tactical approach agreed upon, Sarah led her team toward the target area. The mountain terrain was challenging, requiring careful movement and constant awareness of potential observation or hostile patrol activity. As they moved, Sarah found herself reflecting on the dramatic changes in her professional situation. 3 weeks ago, she had been fighting for basic acceptance and struggling to have her tactical input taken seriously. Now she was leading elite operators in complex mission scenarios and receiving enthusiastic support for innovative tactical approaches. The transformation had not happened overnight. After the confrontation and successful mission with her original team, Sarah had been selected for additional training and leadership development opportunities. Senior Chief Peterson had personally mentored her through advanced tactical planning courses, and her performance had consistently ranked among the top candidates. More importantly, her reputation had spread throughout the special warfare community. Instructors who had initially viewed her presence with skepticism now sought her input on tactical problems and training scenarios. Fellow candidates who had once questioned her capabilities now competed for opportunities to work with her on challenging exercises. "Contact ahead," Rodriguez whispered, interrupting her thoughts. Through the trees, they could see the compound where their target was supposedly being held. It was exactly as described in their intelligence briefing, a remote building with clear defensive advantages and limited approach routes. Sarah signaled for the team to take cover while she assessed the tactical situation. Through her binoculars, she could see several individuals in hostile force gear maintaining security positions around the compound perimeter. "Chun, can you get electronic intelligence on their communications?" Chun deployed his specialized equipment and began scanning radio frequencies used by the exercise controllers. Within minutes, he had intercepted several communications that provided valuable intelligence about hostile force strength and positioning. "For hostile forces confirmed," he whispered. "Two maintaining perimeter security, one inside with the hostage, one serving as overall commander. Deployment pattern? Standard defensive positioning covering the main approach routes. They're not expecting infiltration from the north slope because of the terrain difficulty." Sarah studied the north slope through her binoculars. It was steep and rocky, requiring technical climbing skills to navigate safely. Most tactical teams would consider it unsuitable for assault approaches, which made it perfect for her purposes. "Patterson, can you establish overwatch position with clear sight lines to the compound?" Patterson examined the terrain with professional interest. "There's a ridge about 300 meters out that would provide excellent fields of fire. I can control the exterior hostile forces while you and Rodriguez handle the interior assault." "Rodriguez, are you comfortable with technical climbing?" "Absolutely. The north slope approach is challenging but doable." Sarah felt the tactical plan coming together with military precision. Each team member would utilize their specialized skills to accomplish specific objectives that contributed to overall mission success. "Here's the execution sequence," she explained. "Patterson establishes overwatch and provides intelligence on hostile movement patterns. Chun continues electronic monitoring and prepares to disrupt their communications on my signal. Rodriguez and I conduct the north slope approach and infiltrate the compound for hostage rescue." "Timeline?" Rodriguez asked. 30 minutes for positioning, 15 minutes for approach, and infiltration, 5 minutes for rescue and extraction. It was an aggressive timeline that required flawless execution and perfect coordination. But Sarah was confident in her team's capabilities and her own tactical planning. They separated according to their assigned roles, moving with the practiced efficiency of elite military operators. Sarah watched Patterson disappear toward his overwatch position while Chun established his electronic warfare station in a concealed location with good communications coverage. "Ready for north slope approach," she told Rodriguez. The climb was technically demanding, requiring both upper body strength and careful route selection through loose rock and steep terrain. Sarah's rock climbing experience proved invaluable as she identified handholds and secure anchor points for their ascent. Behind her, Rodriguez moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to challenging physical environments. His Army Ranger background had included extensive mountain warfare training, and he adapted quickly to Sarah's route selection and climbing techniques. "Good route choice," he whispered as they paused on a narrow ledge halfway up the slope. that definitely aren't watching this approach. Through her earpiece, Sarah could hear Patterson's intelligence updates from his overwatch position. 2 sentries maintaining routine patrol patterns. No indication of increased security awareness. Chen's voice followed. Communications intercept indicates normal operations. No alerts or suspicious activity reported. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The hostile forces were focused on conventional approach routes, while Sarah's team positioned themselves for an assault from an unexpected direction. They reached the compound perimeter without detection, having successfully climbed the north slope and infiltrated to within 20 feet of the target building. Through windows, Sarah could see the instructor playing the hostage scenario, bound to a chair and guarded by a single hostile force. Patterson, do you have clear sight lines to exterior sentries? Affirmative. Both targets identified and tracked. Chun, prepare for communications disruption on my signal. Standing by. Sarah positioned herself and Rodriguez for coordinated entry through separate access points. The plan required split-second timing to neutralize the interior guard before he could harm the hostage or alert the other hostile forces. Execute on my mark, Sarah whispered. 3, 2, 1, mark. Several things happened simultaneously. Chin activated his communications jamming equipment, cutting off radio contact between hostile forces. Patterson engaged the exterior sentries with precision rifle fire, marking them as casualties before they could respond. Sarah and Rodriguez breached into the building from different entrances, converging on the hostage location with coordinated timing. The hostile force guarding the hostage was caught completely off guard, expecting any threat to come through the main entrance. He was not positioned to defend against the coordinated assault from multiple directions. Federal agents, Sarah shouted, maintaining the exercise scenario. Drop your weapon. The simulated engagement was over in seconds. The hostile guard was marked as neutralized. The hostage was secured, and the extraction began immediately. Package secured, Sarah reported through her communication system. Beginning extraction. The extraction proved as smooth as the assault. Using the same north slope route that had provided their approach, Sarah led the team and rescued hostage to a secure extraction point where exercise controllers were waiting to evaluate their performance. Mission complete, announced Instructor Williams as he arrived at the extraction point. All hostile forces neutralized, hostage rescued safely, 0 friendly casualties. Sarah felt the familiar surge of professional satisfaction that came with successful mission completion. But this time, the feeling was enhanced by the knowledge that she had led the mission rather than simply participated in it. Williams approached with his evaluation clipboard, his expression revealing nothing about his assessment of their performance. Interesting tactical approach, Martinez. Walk me through your decision-making process. Sarah provided a detailed explanation of her analysis of the tactical situation, the intelligence gathering that had informed her planning, and the coordination required to execute a complex multi-phase operation with perfect timing. And your team coordination? Williams pressed. Outstanding, Sarah replied without hesitation. Each team member contributed specialized expertise that was essential for mission success. Williams turned to Rodriguez. How do you assess Martinez's leadership during this exercise? Rodriguez's response was immediate and unequivocal. Exceptional tactical planning, clear communication, effective utilization of team capabilities, and excellent decision-making under pressure. Martinez demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership we need in special operations. Patterson, who had just arrived from his Overwatch position, nodded agreement. The tactical innovation was brilliant. Using the North Slope approach to bypass their defensive preparations was exactly the kind of creative problem-solving that separates elite operators from conventional forces. Chun added his assessment. Perfect coordination of multiple specialties and excellent adaptability when the situation required tactical flexibility. Williams made detailed notes, then looked up at Sarah with an expression that revealed his professional evaluation. This mission will be written up as a textbook example of innovative tactical leadership. The approach methodology, team coordination, and execution timing were all outstanding. The official recognition was gratifying, but Sarah was more pleased by the genuine respect and professional acknowledgement from her team members. These were elite operators who understood what constituted exceptional performance, and their approval carried more weight than any formal evaluation. There's one more thing, Williams continued. Senior Chief Peterson has been monitoring this exercise, and he's requested a private debrief with you, Martinez. Sarah felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Peterson's evaluations had consistently been positive, but private debriefs with senior special operations personnel often involved career-defining conversations. She found Peterson waiting in the Tactical Operations Center, studying video footage of her team's mission execution. His expression was thoughtful as he reviewed her tactical decisions and leadership performance. "Outstanding work, Martinez," he said as she entered the room. "That was exactly the kind of innovative thinking and effective leadership we need in special operations." "Thank you, Senior Chief. I'm not just talking about today's mission," Peterson continued. "I'm talking about your overall progression through advanced training. You've consistently demonstrated tactical excellence, leadership capability, and the kind of adaptability that defines elite operators." Sarah listened carefully, recognizing that the conversation was moving beyond routine performance evaluation. "Which is why I want to discuss your future career opportunities," Peterson said, his tone becoming more serious. "Your performance has attracted attention at very high levels of the special operations community." The implications were staggering. Sarah had entered special warfare training hoping simply to prove that she belonged among elite military professionals. Now she was being told that her capabilities were being evaluated for the most prestigious assignments in military service. "There are opportunities available that would utilize your unique combination of tactical intelligence, innovative thinking, and proven leadership capability," Peterson explained. "But they require a level of commitment and performance that goes beyond even what you've demonstrated so far." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. The conversation was clearly leading toward opportunities that most military professionals could only dream of achieving. "What kind of opportunities, Senior Chief?" Peterson's smile suggested that her question demonstrated exactly the kind of ambition and confidence he was looking for. "The kind of opportunities that define careers and shape the future of special operations warfare." He paused, studying her carefully. "But first, you need to complete your current training with the same level of excellence you've shown so far. There are still challenges ahead that will test every capability you've developed." As Sarah left the operations center, her mind raced with the implications of Peterson's words. The transformation from marginalized outsider to recognized tactical leader had been dramatic enough. Now, she was being prepared for opportunities that could place her among the most elite military professionals in the world. But first, she had to continue proving herself in the demanding environment of advanced special warfare training. The respect she had earned was based on demonstrated performance, and maintaining that respect would require continued excellence in every challenge that lay ahead. The sun was setting over the mountain training facility, casting long,